The rubric here, talking specifically about our discussion rubric. And what you're going to notice is that there are some things that are going to work for the whole group. So, in an ideal world, the whole group gets the same grade. And there are going to be some times where individual function kind of breaks down, and I have to make an individual grade out of that. So, one thing I do want to make clear is you'll get a group grade initially, and then I'll go and make any changes, which unfortunately will all be negative points after that. All right. So communication is key, and as you're kind of setting up, for presentations next week, it's going to be really important that you follow some of these things that groups are, some groups are very good at, some groups need to get much better at. So first things first, we're discussing lenses. I really want to make sure that you're using all three lenses. And so pay attention here that there's a balanced discussion between those lenses, and that you're having a meaningful discussion. So we're going to get to that when we get to analysis. But you're using all three lenses. Maybe one is underserved. That's a B. So this is, again, where I expect you to score, where, yes, of course, you're using all the lenses, but maybe there are some opportunities that are really missed. If I start to see like 2 that are really missed, then I'm going to be over here. I mean, 2 out of 3 is really a C for me if you're missing 2 out of 3. Your group engagement. So hopefully you're working well together. You're not talking over each other, that kind of basic goal of respect, but we're going to add to that. The goal should really be to get to the purpose or the meaning of this poem, right? So that means kind of having a little bit of a plan. Again, I have a space just for planning and structure, but as you're thinking about that plan, like thinking about, well, what are the natural places where we want to transition? Where do we need to get to in the discussion before we can move to that next lens? And so a B is like, maybe there are times where you're talking over each other and it lasts a little too long. Maybe there are some poor transitions. Maybe I see a little bit of a lack of direction. If you're scoring in the A-B range, this is your whole group, okay? However, if I start to see a single member who's really not participating, that's where that member is going to get an individual grade of a C, or even down to a D or an F. So this is one where I expect your group to be working at this level, hopefully at this level. But if one individual is really causing some problems, they're going to get this grade where the rest of the group is up here. If I have multiple people, then maybe all of you are down here, but no single group would get a D or an F or even a C. Works cited page. Basic expectations for your works cited page. I am going to do a presentation on how to build a works cited page on Monday next week. So that would give everybody still 24 hours to get an assignment to me, even if you were totally unaware of how to do works cited and had to watch that on Monday. And I'll try to get that to you over the weekend, actually. So a works cited page needs to be provided to me within 24 hours of your discussion, and what I expect to see in that is all of your sources using the MLA format. That really shouldn't be too much of an ask at this point. If your works cited page is late, or if you have a lot of significant errors, then I'm going to be moving it down to the B. If it's both late and errors, then it's in C territory, and man, if your works cited page is a mess, then I'm just not going to take it. You're not going to get that credit. Structure and planning. So make sure that you're sitting down and talking to your peers ahead of time, planning some things, planning out what sources you're going to use, those types of things that you're kind of seeing in the conversations that we have is like, oh yeah, this would have been nice if we had planned this out ahead of time. So planning is going to include what's the general movement of the conversation. Something very simple, for example, would be, do we want to do, formalism and then old historicism and then new historicism? Do we want to start with old historicism? Those are things you should know before going into the conversation. That's going to make transitions work a little easier. It's going to cut down on the crosstalk. So really a good plan is going to help your grade in these other categories. If I kind of get a sense that you could have planned more effectively, maybe we're not good at communicating to each other, then I'm going to bump you down a grade. But again, this is going to be one where if one person really seems out of whack, like I might take off on one person instead of the group. If the whole group is really seeming to have a lot of difficulty, then then we can maybe talk about getting that C there. Another thing about structure and planning is I'm just having a little more trouble than I would expect from AP students as far as scheduling times, picking things in a timely manner. I think that kind of starts with, is there a base leader in your group? Is there somebody who takes the initiative? Are all of you checking your email, etc.? And so we have to do something about that. So if you're not including me in your plans, or you're not arranging a time, like really everybody wants to set a time by Friday, on Monday at the very latest, when we're going to talk next week. So I really don't want to be into Tuesday and Wednesday still trying to figure out when we're going to have a conversation, because that throws my week into a lot of upheaval, and it throws your week into a lot of upheaval. So we definitely want to have that planned out, and I'm going to start taking off some points. So if you're not being a good communicator with me, then it's really showing that you're not having a lot of structure and planning yourself. Finally, analysis. So remember, we're replacing an analysis paper, and we're using lenses to do the work of analysis. So are you going back to the poem pretty often? Are you doing things like including specific references to the poem? Are you doing things like including specific references from a source and connecting that to the poem? That's the work of analysis. So are you going through that process relatively often? Analysis often relies on superior use of those sources, so making sure that you have those sources ahead of time. And the difference between an A and a B is like not being specific enough, or not using figurative language in the correct way. So kind of knowing and refreshing yourself with that terminology is a big deal. And then, of course, if we're getting down here, that means we're not making strong connections. We're making kind of general connections. You might talk about the fourth wave of feminism, but you might not mention Me Too, for example. Or you might not ever mention a line from the poem. That's a good indicator that you're not doing real analysis, or that you're not being specific enough. So again, pretty strong thinking that I expect us to be in this A-B range, especially as we're getting into some of these things. And definitely the big takeaway is that we're working as a group, and that if one person's stepping out of line, they're probably going to get a grade deduction. But for the most part, we are still kind of working in the group way.